From a confusing title that suggested leprechauns to a star who threatened to quit if filming moved to California, The Brian Keith Show was full of surprises behind the Hawaiian paradise. Discover how a Beverly Hillbillies legend joined the cast, why Brian Keith only worked 2 months a year, and the bizarre nudist camp episode that shocked viewers in the show's second season. Fact 1. It had 2 different names when The Brian Keith Show premiered on NBC on September 15, 1972. It wasn't actually called The Brian Keith Show at all. The first season aired under the title The Little People, which immediately caused confusion among viewers who had no idea what they were about to watch. The name was meant to refer to the children that Dr. Sean Jameson treated at his free clinic in Hawaii, but audiences didn't make that connection. Instead, many people assumed the show would be about leprechauns, fairies, or some kind of fantasy program, which couldn't have been further from the truth. This was actually a straightforward family sitcom about a pediatrician and his daughter running a children's medical clinic in Oahu. By the time the second season rolled around in the fall of 1973, producers realized the title was doing more harm than good. Gary Marshall, the show's creator, later told reporters that the title, The Little People, made it seem like a story of leprechauns, which was obviously not what they were going for. The network made the decision to rename the series The Brian Keith Show for its second season, putting the star's name front and center to eliminate any confusion. This was a common practice in television at the time, as networks believed that naming a show after its lead actor helped audiences understand exactly what they were tuning in to watch. The name change also reflected a shift in the show's tone, as producers moved away from the heartwarming family approach toward more adult comedy situations and wanted to attract a wider audience beyond just families with young children. Fact 2. Brian Keith demanded Hawaii or nothing. Brian Keith had one non-negotiable condition when NBC approached him about starring in a new sitcom following the end of Family Affair, and that condition was that the entire show had to be filmed in Hawaii, not on some Hollywood studio backlot with California beaches pretending to be the Hawaiian Islands. Keith had already become a part-time Hawaii resident by 1970 and was married to Victoria Young, who was born in Honolulu, so the islands felt like home to him. In a 1973 interview with the Boston Herald, Keith explained his reasoning by saying, "I love living there, and that's where I want to work. Hawaii is home to us, and doing the show there is like working in the backyard." He also made a pointed comparison to Hawaii Five-0, noting that when he watched that show, he enjoyed the beautiful scenery. But if it were done in Cleveland, it would be just another cops and robbers show. NBC quickly approved the project, but only after Keith made it crystal clear that filming in Hawaii wasn't just a preference, it was a requirement. Once the network gave their approval, a Warner Brothers production team was immediately sent to Honolulu to scout filming locations and set up the production infrastructure needed to film an entire television series thousands of miles away from Hollywood. Keith wasn't bluffing about his commitment to keeping the show in Hawaii either. He actually vowed to quit the series entirely if production ever decided to move back to California for budget reasons or convenience. Fortunately for everyone involved, that never happened, and the show remained in Hawaii for both of its seasons. Fact 3. Filmed at a Diamond Head estate. Once NBC agreed to film The Brian Keith Show entirely in Hawaii, the Warner Brothers production team faced the challenge of finding the perfect location that could serve as the home base for the series. After scouting various properties around Honolulu, they settled on the stunning Otani Estate located at 3139 Diamond Head Road, right at the foot of the famous Diamond Head volcanic crater. This wasn't just any random property, it was a luxurious beachfront estate that provided the show with an authentically gorgeous Hawaiian backdrop that no studio backlot could ever hope to recreate. The estate's location gave the production team easy access to Diamond Head's dramatic volcanic scenery, beautiful beaches, and lush tropical landscaping that became a visual signature of the series. Filming at an actual Hawaiian estate rather than on a soundstage in Burbank meant that the show genuinely looked and felt like it was set in Hawaii, which was exactly what Brian Keith wanted when he insisted on filming in the islands. The outdoor scenes, ocean views, and tropical atmosphere weren't created by set designers and painted backdrops. They were the real deal captured on location in one of the most beautiful places on Earth. The estate served as the primary filming location throughout both seasons of the show from 1972 to 1974, and became as much a character in the series as any of the human actors. This commitment to authentic location filming was relatively uncommon for sitcoms of that era, as most television comedies were shot entirely on sound stages to keep costs down and maintain production control. But The Brian Keith Show proved that sometimes the extra effort and expense of location filming could pay off in visual authenticity. Fact 4. Keith's real wife played his nurse. One of the most charming behind-the-scenes facts about The Brian Keith Show is that it truly was a family affair in more ways than one. Victoria Young, who played Nurse Pooney on the series, wasn't just another actress hired for the role. She was actually Brian Keith's real-life wife. Keith had married Victoria, whose full Hawaiian name was Victoria Young Lealoha, in 1970, just 2 years before the show premiered. Victoria was born in Honolulu, which made her a perfect fit for playing a native Hawaiian character on a show set in Oahu, and her authentic connection to the islands added genuine Hawaiian culture and warmth to the series. On the show, Nurse Pooney served as the receptionist and nurse at Dr. Jameson's free clinic, and she was often portrayed as being playfully jealous whenever her boss went on dates with pretty local Hawaiian women, adding a light romantic comedy element to the workplace dynamics. But the family connections didn't stop with Victoria. The couple's young son, Bobby Keith, also appeared in several episodes throughout the show's run, making The Brian Keith Show even more of a genuine family production than Keith's previous hit series Family Affair ever was. In fact, the show's production company was even called Miguel Productions, which Keith had an ownership stake in, and it wasn't just involved in television production, but also had extensive real estate, mineral, and agricultural holdings in Hawaii. This meant that Keith wasn't just an actor showing up for work. He was deeply invested in the show both personally and professionally, with his actual family members appearing on screen alongside him and his business interests tied directly to the Hawaiian Islands where filming took place. Fact 5. The 2-month filming schedule. Brian Keith had learned a valuable lesson from his previous hit series Family Affair, and he made sure to negotiate the same unique filming arrangement for The Brian Keith Show that had given him so much freedom during his CBS sitcom years. Following the same deal that Fred MacMurray had pioneered on My Three Sons, Keith's contract stipulated that all of his scenes for an entire season would be filmed in just 2 30-day blocks, meaning he only had to work about 2 months out of the entire year. This unusual production schedule meant that Keith would come in and film all of his scenes for every episode of the season in one concentrated burst of activity, shooting all the bedroom scenes, all the kitchen scenes, all the living room scenes, and all the clinic scenes back to back, regardless of which episode they belonged to. After Keith finished his 2 months of intensive filming, the rest of the cast and crew would then return and shoot their remaining scenes around his footage, piecing together the individual episodes in order. This arrangement allowed Keith to remain available for movie roles and extended vacations during the remaining 10 months of the year, which was enormously appealing to an actor who wanted to maintain a film career while also enjoying the financial security of a weekly television series. During his time off from the show, Keith continued to work on the big screen in various films, maintaining his presence in Hollywood while living primarily in Hawaii. The downside of this schedule was that it made things considerably more difficult for the other actors, who had to remember what their characters were doing in each specific episode and maintain continuity across scenes that were filmed weeks or even months apart from each other. Fact 6. Created by Happy Days legend. When The Brian Keith Show premiered in 1972, its creator, Gary Marshall, was still building his reputation as a television producer and writer, but he would soon become one of the most successful and influential figures in sitcom history. Marshall had already worked as a writer on shows like The Dick Van Dyke Show, The Joey Bishop Show, The Danny Thomas Show, and The Lucy Show throughout the 1960s, and he had adapted Neil Simon's play The Odd Couple for television with great success. However, The Brian Keith Show represented an important stepping stone in Marshall's career, coming just before he would create the massive hits that would define 1970s television comedy. Just 2 years after The Brian Keith Show premiered, Marshall would create Happy Days in 1974, which would become one of the most beloved and successful sitcoms of all time and run for 11 seasons on ABC. That success led to Laverne and Shirley in 1976, which starred Marshall's own sister Penny and became the #1 show on television, and Mork and Mindy in 1978, which launched Robin Williams to stardom. Marshall's work on The Brian Keith Show gave him valuable experience in creating family-friendly comedy with heart, even though the series itself never achieved the massive success of his later creations. In a 1972 interview with the Honolulu Advertiser, Marshall explained that they would deal with various physical as well as emotional ailments of the little people, but each episode would be laced with humor and would reveal Dr. Jameson as a warm, concerned physician who was as completely taken with his profession as he was with life, showing his storytelling approach that would later make him famous. Fact 7. Brian Keith directed an episode. While Brian Keith was primarily known as an actor throughout his long career, he occasionally stepped behind the camera to try his hand at directing, and The Brian Keith Show gave him one of those rare opportunities during the first season. Keith directed the episode titled The Bestest Doctor in the Whole Wide World, which aired on January 26, 1973, and the plot was particularly fitting for a directorial debut. In this episode, Dr. Jameson finds himself reluctantly starring in a movie being made by one of his little patients for a school project, and the situation quickly turns into a comedic madhouse as the young filmmaker creates chaos in the clinic. The episode featured guest appearances from Stephen Haig, who played Alfred Landis, Sean Tyler Hall as Stewart, and Gloria Nakia as Joan. Wilson and the behind-the-scenes story involved a child director making a documentary about their pediatrician, which created plenty of opportunities for comedy and mayhem. Keith's decision to direct this particular episode showed his willingness to take creative control and explore different aspects of television production beyond just acting in front of the camera. While he wasn't credited as a director on many other projects throughout his career, this episode demonstrated that Keith had the skills and understanding of television production to handle both sides of the camera when given the opportunity. The episode's plot about making a movie within the show also provided some meta-humor about the television production process itself, which must have been enjoyable for Keith to direct, since he could draw on his decades of experience working on film and television sets. Unfortunately, this remained Keith's only directing credit on The Brian Keith Show, as he returned to focusing purely on his acting duties for the remainder of the series. Fact 8. Miss Jane Hathaway's second act. Nancy Culp had become a household name, playing the lovable, man-starved bank secretary, Miss Jane Hathaway, on The Beverly Hillbillies, which aired on CBS from 1962 to 1971 and ran for 9 seasons, making her one of the most recognizable character actresses on television. When The Beverly Hillbillies ended its run in 1971, Culp found herself looking for the next chapter in her television career, and she didn't have to wait long. In 1973, Culp joined the cast of The Brian Keith Show for its second season, playing Mrs. Millard Gruber, a wealthy widow who owned the free clinic where Dr. Jameson and his daughter worked. Mrs. Gruber was described as owning not just the clinic, but much of Hawaii itself, and her character was added to the cast specifically to create problem situations that the easygoing doctor and his daughter would then have to solve. Culp's casting was particularly significant because she brought her considerable fan following from The Beverly Hillbillies to this new series, and viewers who had loved her as Miss Jane Hathaway were excited to see what she would do in this new role. The character of Mrs. Gruber was different from Miss Jane in many ways, as she was wealthy, commanding, and used to getting her way, rather than being the eager-to-please secretary trying desperately to find a husband. Culp appeared in the second season episodes as a regular cast member alongside Roger Bowen's Dr. Chaffee character, and together they represented the uptight, proper side of society that contrasted nicely with Brian Keith's laid-back Hawaiian doctor character, creating comedy through the clash of their different worldviews and approaches to life. Fact 9. 2 MASH colonels on one show. When The Brian Keith Show needed to shake things up for its second season in 1973, the producers brought in Roger Bowen to play Dr. Austin Chaffee, a prim and proper allergist who rented office space at Dr. Jameson's clinic and immediately tried to take over the staff with his by-the-book approach to medicine. What made Bowen's casting particularly notable was that just 3 years earlier, he had played Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake in Robert Altman's 1970 film MASH, the movie that launched the entire MASH franchise. While McLean Stevenson would go on to play Colonel Blake in the famous television version of MASH that premiered in 1972 and ran for 11 seasons, Bowen had originated the role on the big screen and brought movie star credibility to The Brian Keith Show. Bowen was known for playing stuffy, upper-class characters, and Dr. Chaffee fit that mold perfectly as an uptight allergist who was horrified by the chaotic routine of Dr. Jameson's casual Hawaiian clinic. The character was specifically designed to be a foil for Brian Keith's laid-back character, creating comedy through their contrasting approaches to medicine and life. Bowen had already gained a television fan following playing Hamilton Majors Jr., the pleasantly snooty Ivy League boss on the sitcom Arnie from 1970 to 72. So he was well practiced at playing these kinds of proper aristocratic characters. In the show, Dr. Chaffee found Sean's uber-casual way of conducting things more than a little disconcerting, and this culture clash between formal mainland medicine and relaxed island living provided much of the second season's comedy. Fact 10. The French Plastic Beach Car. One of the most distinctive and unusual elements of The Brian Keith Show was Dr. Sean Jameson's choice of transportation, which wasn't your typical American sedan or family station wagon, but rather a quirky 1970 Citroën Mehari, a vehicle that looked like nothing else on American television at the time. The Citroën Mehari was a lightweight utility vehicle and beach buggy that had been designed by French World War II fighter ace Count Roland de la Poype, who headed a plastics company and wanted to create an affordable, versatile vehicle inspired by the Mini Moke and wartime Jeeps. What made the Mehari truly unique was its body, which was made entirely of ABS plastic rather than traditional metal, making it lightweight, rust-proof, and perfectly suited for beach environments like Hawaii. The car weighed only about 535 kilograms, or about 1,179 pounds, featured fully independent suspension, and was powered by a tiny 602 cubic centimeter flat twin engine shared with the Citroën 2CV. The Mehari had been marketed in the United States for only the 1969 and 1970 model years, where it was classified as a truck to avoid stricter passenger car safety requirements, and Budget Rent-A-Car had even offered them as rentals in Hawaii. With its open sides, fold-down windscreen, and colorful plastic body panels, the Mehari looked more like a toy than a serious automobile, but that was part of its charm and perfectly matched the casual, beach-friendly atmosphere of the show. The car's appearance in The Brian Keith Show made it one of the most memorable and unusual character vehicles in television history, right up there with the Batmobile and the Monkeymobile. Fact 11. He tried to hire Anissa Jones. After Family Affair ended its 5-season run on CBS in 1971, Brian Keith remained deeply concerned about the welfare of his former young co-stars, particularly Anissa Jones, who had played the adorable 6-year-old Buffy Davis throughout the show's entire run. Jones had become so identified with the Buffy character that she was having difficulty finding other work in Hollywood, as casting directors couldn't see her as anything other than the little girl with the Mrs. Beasley doll. Several months after production began on The Little People in 1972, Keith learned that Jones was struggling to find work and was having trouble transitioning from child star to teenage actress. Being the kind of person who looked after his former colleagues, Keith did something remarkable. He offered Jones a no-audition, guaranteed role on his new series, essentially telling her that the part was hers if she wanted it, and she wouldn't have to prove herself or compete with other actresses. This was an incredibly generous offer from Keith, who clearly felt a sense of responsibility toward the young actress he had worked with so closely for so many years on Family Affair. However, Jones turned down the offer, telling Keith something that must have been difficult for him to hear. She no longer wanted to work in television at all. The years of being typecast as Buffy and the intense pressure of being a child star had apparently taken their toll on Jones, and she was ready to leave show business behind entirely. Sadly, Jones's story would end tragically when she died of a drug overdose in 1976 at just 18 years old, making Keith's attempt to help her all the more poignant. Fact 12. The controversial nudist camp episode. When The Brian Keith Show returned for its second season in the fall of 1973 with its new title and new cast members, the producers decided to open with an episode that was guaranteed to grab viewers' attention and show that the series was moving toward more adult-oriented comedy. The second season premiere, titled The Camp Doctor, featured a plot that was remarkably bold for a family sitcom in 1973. In this episode, Dr. Sean Jameson receives an emergency call to what he believes is a children's camp called Camp Olahino, and he rushes over expecting to treat sick kids at a summer camp. However, when he arrives, Jameson is shocked to discover that Camp Olahino is actually a nudist colony, not a children's camp at all. The situation becomes increasingly complicated and comedic as Dr. Sean loses young Stewart in the crowd of nudists, and then his problems mount even further when Poonie, his nurse played by Keith's real wife, Victoria Young, and his daughter Dr. Ann, played by Shelley Fiberis, arrive unexpectedly to help him with what they think is a medical emergency. The crowning shock of the episode comes when Dr. Jameson discovers that his uptight colleague, Dr. Chaffee, played by Roger Bowen, is actually a member of the nudist colony, making him the last person Jameson expected to see in such an uninhibited setting. The episode was written by Irma Kalish and Austin Kalish and directed by Earl Bellamy, and it aired on September 28, 1973. This provocative season opener signaled that the show was moving away from the wholesome little people approach and embracing more sophisticated, risque comedy to attract adult viewers. Fact 13. Local Hawaiian child actors. Unlike most Hollywood television productions of the early 1970s, which typically relied on professional child actors from Los Angeles who had agents, acting coaches, and years of experience working on sets, The Brian Keith Show took a completely different approach to casting the young people who appeared on screen. The show deliberately avoided using professional children and instead made a point of casting local Hawaiian kids as extras and in speaking roles throughout both seasons of the series. This decision was part of Brian Keith's broader commitment to making the show authentically Hawaiian, rather than just another Hollywood production that happened to be set in an exotic location. In a 1973 interview with the Boston Herald, Keith specifically addressed this casting philosophy, saying, "We don't use professional children on our Hawaii show," making it clear that this was an intentional choice rather than just a matter of convenience. By using real Hawaiian children who lived on the islands, the show gained an authenticity that couldn't be faked with California kids pretending to be Hawaiian. These local children brought genuine island culture, natural speech patterns, and real connections to the community that professional child actors simply couldn't replicate. Many of the children used as extras or who had speaking parts were kids from the Honolulu area who had little or no previous acting experience, which gave their performances a natural, unrehearsed quality that fit perfectly with the show's laid-back Hawaiian atmosphere. This commitment to authentic local casting extended beyond just the children, as the show also featured appearances from local Hawaiian actors and celebrities from the entertainment and news fields, including Zulu, Mo Keel, and others. Fact 14. Stewart's $1-a-week salary. Among the regular cast members during the first season of The Little People was a young character named Stewart, played by actor Sean Tyler Hall, who had one of the most charming and economically unrealistic jobs in television history. Stewart worked at Dr. Jameson's free clinic performing various odd jobs and helping to keep the place running smoothly. But his compensation for all this work was the princely sum of just $1 per week. The character's responsibilities included sweeping the floors, cleaning up around the clinic, and emptying the trash baskets, essentially serving as the clinic's janitor and general helper despite being just a neighborhood youngster. This $1-a-week salary was obviously not meant to be taken seriously as realistic compensation, but rather served as a storytelling device to emphasize several important aspects of the show's premise. First, it reinforced the fact that this was a free clinic operating on a shoestring budget, where every dollar mattered and the staff had to make do with whatever resources they could scrape together. Second, it showed Dr. Jameson's kindness and his commitment to helping the local children as he was giving Stewart responsibility, purpose, and a small amount of spending money rather than just sending him away. Third, it created a charming dynamic where this young boy was essentially an apprentice learning about medicine and responsibility while earning his very modest paycheck. The character of Stewart appeared throughout the first season alongside Alfred Landis, played by Stephen Hague, as the two neighborhood youngsters who were regulars at the clinic, but both characters were dropped when the show was retooled and renamed The Brian Keith Show for its second season in 1973. Fact 15. Canceled after just 47 episodes. Despite having everything going for it, including a popular star in Brian Keith fresh off the success of Family Affair, a talented supporting cast featuring Shelley Fabares and later Nancy Culp and Roger Bowen, a legendary creator in Gary Marshall, and the stunning, authentic Hawaiian locations that made it visually distinctive from every other sitcom on television, The Brian Keith Show lasted only 2 seasons before NBC pulled the plug. The show premiered on September 15, 1972 as The Little People and aired its final original episode on March 29, 1974, with reruns continuing until August 30th of that year before disappearing from the network's schedule entirely. Over those 2 seasons, the show produced a total of 47 episodes, which was a respectable but not impressive run for a network sitcom of that era. The show aired on NBC on Friday nights, first in the 8:30 Eastern time slot during its first season, then moving to 9:30 Eastern for its second season, where it faced stiff competition from other networks' programming. The cancellation was likely due to a combination of factors, including the show's inability to find a consistent audience, the confusion caused by the first season's Little Ajua people title, and the high costs associated with filming an entire series in Hawaii rather than on a Hollywood soundstage. Perhaps most unfortunately, The Brian Keith Show has rarely been seen in syndication since its 1974 cancellation, meaning that newer generations of television viewers have had almost no opportunity to discover the series or appreciate its unique Hawaiian charm and talented cast.